And that covers all the normal zombies. We have got to get them some more defense points. Okay, what's next? Didn't think I'd get any service down here. Go for Nova.
Where are you?
Oh, hey Delilah. Aaron teleported me to the underworld to sort out all the zombies that were tossed around after the River of Souls went a little haywire. How are you?
I'm trying to help repair the despots, but I have no idea how you take rubber bands and paper clips and MacGyver this into robot parts.
You're doing it right so far. You just have to add in some imagination and a splash of childlike wonder.
Yeah, I ran out of childlike wonder when I was like, 12. So how about you get your optimistic ass up here so we can get the kids put back together?
I wish I could, but I've still got so much stuff going on down here. For instance, I've got this counseling appointment with Getsufuma and Ryukoki coming up. Says they lost the spark of excitement in their eternal battle of fate and need some help rediscovering their rivalry.
Oh my god, again? Fine. I know how you can speed this up. I know some experts. I'm sending you their info now. Get them explained and they should be able to handle this.
Oh, thank you. You're the best.
Shut up, baby. I know it.
Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. The next Grand Creators archetype we'll be going over is Exorsisters, a group of battle nuns who spread the word of the divine. Usually by pointing spells at whichever unholy abomination they can get line of sight on. While the deck's applications are narrow in scope, the power they can bring to bear on their chosen targets will strike the fear of God in them. So let's put together the verses we'll be reciting, determine the goals of this holy order, then see who we can bring in for a guest sermon. You better stock up on holy water, because it's time to exterminate the competition with Exorsisters. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and what better way to travel down the road than on your dual runner? We'll be covering iconic 5Ds characters along the way, and our next stop is 20k, where we'll start the Yusei Explained series, covering Stardust, Junk, and whatever other cards we can play to help us rev it up. We've also got a Discord, the population of which is the only reason I know what poggers means, and a Twitter where you can stay up to date on channel news and my bad takes. And if you really like what I do here, please consider joining my YouTube membership. It's basically like a Twitch sub, emotes included, or backing me on Patreon, where you can vote on a video that I make every month. It also gets you early access to my videos via the patron-only section of my Discord, provided I get the video done ahead of schedule. And whether you're a member or a patron, I get a schedule sent to you on the first week of the month, so you know what to expect for the next 4 weeks. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So, what's the deal with Exorsisters? Well, they're a series of level 4 light spellcaster monsters that make rank 4 light warrior monsters. They also have a big emphasis on sealing the grave, as well as punishing your opponent for using it as a resource. Let's start with our main deck monsters and cover the effect that they all have in common. If your opponent removes any number of cards from either player's grave, you can Xyz summon one Exorsister Xyz monster from your extra deck by using this card you control as Xyz material. Now, at time of recording, I've seen 2 different translations that focus on how this triggers. I've seen it say, by your opponent, and by your opponent's card. It's a very subtle difference, but in general, this triggers off of anything, paying cost, as part of an effect, even inherent summons. If your opponent causes any card to leave any grave in any way, you get the Xyz summon effect. It's unfortunate that your opponent has to be the one to initiate this, and you can't force it with something like DD Crow, but thankfully we have other cards that can help us emulate how Exorsisters are supposed to work, so at least we're not entirely at the mercy of our opponent's deck building decisions. Our first recruit is Exorsister Elaine. They have 400 attack and 800 defense, and they can take an Exorsister card from your hand and put it under your deck to draw a card. Then, if you control Exorsister Sophia, you gain 800 life points. And speaking of which, Exorsister Sophia has 100 attack and 800 defense, and if you control another Exorsister monster, they can draw you a card, then if you control Elaine, you gain 800 life points. This is another common trait of the main deck monsters. They each have an activated effect that gives you a little life point bonus if you have the correct Exorsister in play. These effects always reference each other, which means our 4 main deck monsters are divided into a couple of 2-team pairs, which is also reflected in the spell and trap art, which is all super good theming. Even the life point bonus is here to balance out the cost you have to pay for their spells and traps, implying that their powers draw from their life force, but they're able to support each other to help shoulder that burden. And honestly, what's better than that? Just gals being pals. Exorsister Release has 500 attack and 800 defense, and if you control any Exorsister, you can special summon them from your hand, then if you control Exorsister Stella, you gain 800 life points. Stella, on the other hand, has 300 attack and 800 defense, and during your main phase, you can special summon an Exorsister from your hand, then if you control Elise, you gain 800 life points. These are absolutely the best two Exorcisters to find in your hand when you start a game. If you normal Stella, then use Elise's effect to summon themselves. Stella's effect to special summon from the hand will be free to field one of your other Exorcisters, while netting you 1600 life points between the two of them. And if you can get the other pair on board, that's another 1600 life points and effectively a pot of greed, putting one card in your hand on the bottom of your deck while drawing two. And if you don't have the proper extenders, then you've still got rank 4 material right there to make whatever you want. You can even hard summon the Exorsister Xyz monsters, as two of them let you search on theme cards to fix up your hand. And after having seen all of them, I've gotta say, not a lot of people are mentioning just how cheery all the Exorcisters look while exploring what appears to be a post-apocalyptic setting. The city is ruined, there's plants pushing through the cement. What in the end of the world happened here? Now it's time for the Xyz, and quick note, all their Xyz material are any two level 4 monsters. Exorsister Jabreen has 1400 attack and 2800 defense, and cannot be destroyed by the activated effects of monsters special summoned from the grave. If they were Xyz summoned using an Exorsister monster as material, they can activate a quick effect on the turn they were Xyz summoned to target an effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. They can also detach a material to boost the attack of all Xyz monsters you control by 800 for the rest of the turn. And that's pretty neat, because while Jabreen isn't exactly tearing it up in the combat department, 800 gets them to a solid 2200 and really helps the rest of the team's already stupendous stat line. While I don't imagine there are very many scenarios in which its protection effect will come in clutch, having the effect negation isn't too shabby at shooting down your opponent's game plan. Exorsister Yusophiel has 2100 attack and 1800 defense, also can't be destroyed by the activated effects of monsters special summoned from the grave, and if Xyz summoned using an Exorsister monster, you can activate an effect that shuts both players out of activating effects in the grave for the rest of the turn. They can also detach a material to target any monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Now this is exciting. When summoned off of your main deck Exorsister's effect, you can effectively pull off a Drollenlock bird for the graves. The first time your opponent touches the grave in a turn, Yusophiel descends and ties up the graves for the turn with a nice little bow. Exorsister Michaelis has 2500 attack and 1800 defense, and can't be destroyed by battle with monsters special summoned from the grave. If Xyz summoned using an Exorsister monster, they can activate an effect that turn as a quick effect that targets any card your opponent controls or is in their grave, and you banish it. They can also detach a material to add an Exorsister spell or trap from your deck to your hand. The protection effect here feels a bit more useful, and its Xyz summoned effect is outstanding. Like Jabreen, while you have to activate the effect the turn they're summoned, it's not on summon, meaning you can save the interaction for when it would be most disruptive. Banish a key monster your opponent would use as material or before they activate their effect, pluck a card out of your opponent's grave to keep them from comboing off, or banish some back row if it threatens to be a problem. And while we haven't gone over them yet, trust me when I say the spell and trap searching is super important. In fact, you'll be activating it so much that you'll be making a habit of it. Exorsister Caspatel has 2300 attack and 800 defense, and also can't be destroyed by battle with a monster special summoned from the grave. If Xyz summoned using an Exorsister monster, you can activate an effect that keeps both players from special summoning monsters from the grave for the rest of the turn. Because while they keep grave effects on lockdown, other effects can still pull monsters out of there, but not so while under Caspatel. Also, they can detach an Xyz material to add an Exorsister monster from your deck to your hand. Very helpful for getting the monsters you already have online. Caspatel is less about punishing your opponent and more about preventing them from proceeding with their game plan, and with their searching effect, they're perfectly positioned to help you take advantage of your opponent's stumble, spearheading your follow-up plays. Now it's time for the spells and traps. Exorsister Memento is a quick play spell that costs 800 life points to activate, and on resolution, you target an Exorsister monster you control, then Xyz summon an Exorsister Xyz monster on top of it with a different name from the cards you currently control. You can only activate this card on your opponent's turn, which is usually fine, but you can activate it during your turn as well if your opponent controls a monster special summoned from the grave. Now, I believe that restriction is there to prevent some El Shaddoll fusion level battle phase shenanigans, but it's nice that the card does let you do that if your opponent has a monster that lines up with your theming. But aside from that, it's just a spell card version of your main deck Exorsister effects, allowing you to quick Xyz on your opponent's turn without having to wait for them to pull the trigger on some graveyard plays. It also has the upside of letting your monsters dodge targeted effects, as well as letting you summon on top of another Xyz monster if it's out of material to get some more value out of them. They may use Holy Water, but that certainly doesn't mean they're watered down. Exorsister Pact is another quick play spell that costs 800 life points, and it adds any Exorsister card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself. So you've got a reinforcement of the army for every card in your theme. And bonus, if you searched a monster that lists an Exorsister in its effect text that's currently on your field or in your grave, you can special summon the added monster from your hand. So Pact is a flexible search card that gets stronger as the game progresses, and because it's a quick play spell, you can even activate Pacts in response to an opponent's effect that'll mess with the grave. So you'll have an Exorsister on the field at the right time to trigger an Xyz evolution. It may only be a single spell, but it's paxed with value. Exorsister Carpe Debel is a continuous spell that keeps both players from targeting Exorsister monsters you control with card effects of monsters special summoned from the grave. If you Xyz summon an Exorsister monster, you can declare a card name, and for the rest of the turn, negate the activated effects and effects on the field of cards with that original name. So it's like a more flexible prohibition that actually stops cards that are already on the field, as well as preventing ones that haven't shown up yet. Also, when an attack is declared involving an Exorsister monster, you can target a spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy it. So we've got targeting protection, adding back row removal to attacks, and the most exquisite of effects, rewarding your knowledge of a matchup by turning off a key piece. This can trigger both on your turn to prevent some interaction, or on your opponent's turn after you quick Xyz summon to stop your opponent in their tracks. Keep this up, and your opponent won't be able to advance their game plan, and they'll just be going in circles. Exorsister Vadis is a normal trap that costs 800 life points to activate, and it allows you to special summon an Exorsister from your deck, as well as another one that's listed in the first one's effect text, but they're shuffled into the deck during the end phase, and you're locked into only being able to special summon Exorcisters from your extra deck for the rest of the turn after you resolve this effect. This can be used in either one of two ways. Activate it on your turn to get some Exorcisters on the field to help with your plays, as well as activating their effects for some value, or chain Vadis in response to a graveyard-based effect, kind of like with Pax, but this time you'll get to summon two Exorsister Xyz monsters. This can apply both Yusophiel and Caspitel's effects, get the activated disruption of Jabreen or Michaelis, or any combination of them, because while you're locked into only summoning the main deck pairs with Vadis, the Xyz monsters you can evolve into are up to you. Now, when are we gonna get a card for that funky little demon? They look ripped. Okay, so that's all the Exorsister cards, but what do we do with them? Well, when your effects punish and limit your opponent for certain actions, you're pretty much pigeonholed into the control role. We'll want to play some floodgates to keep our opponent from developing a board, use our pinpoint disruption effects from Michaelis, Jabreen, and Carpe Debel to capitalize on that, and eventually wear down our opponent's life points with our Xyz monsters' attacks. But what can we play to help them out? Since all of our monsters are light, Goes and Match is a pretty swell floodgate. This doesn't help much against Drytron, but Virtual World is going to have a much more difficult time navigating combo lines, and will absolutely make Tri-Brigade players cry when they attempt to activate Revolt. While our main deck monsters punish our opponent for grave plays, nothing's stopping them from just running over them in battle. After all, their highest stat is their defense, and it's only 800. However, Witchcrafter Golem Aruru can help with this. If any of your Exorcisters are targeted for an attack, Aruru can bounce the offending monster back to the hand. It'll act as a substantial attacker for the turn, then return to your hand to set up your protection all over again. Photon Thrasher is a great way to field more material to help you hard summon your Exorsister Xyz monsters. Sometimes you just need to be proactive with it, especially if you need to summon Michaelis or Caspitel for some searches. Or to help you OTK your opponent. Even if we run the Goes and Match plan, Utopia Double is still an option. As for a silly tech pick, Creature Swap! That's right, if we can't banish cards out of our opponent's grave to force the Exorsister Xyz summon effect, then we can certainly donate ways to do it. For instance, Death's Feral Imp's flip effect is mandatory. Just set them, creature swap it for something your opponent has, attack into the imp, and congratulations! An opponent's card moved a card out of the grave. Thank you very much to @VtuberYubel for the insight here. Okay, here's where the translation from the beginning of the video comes in. If the proper translation comes out to just have your opponent move a card out of the grave, then you can actually mix this deck with Ogdoadics. Curse and Alert both have an effect that have your opponent take a monster from their grave and either special summon it or add it to their hand respectively, though they can choose not to do that. And remember, this one is very translation dependent, so when the TCG version drops in a few weeks, make sure to read the text very closely. Also, shoutouts to LlewTCG for pointing this out to me. And that's all I've got for Exorsisters, and thank goodness the workload here is piling up.
Hello! Exorsister Extermination, where our motto is, we address what they possess. How can we help you today?
Hi, I've got a bit of a backlog in working these cases. Can you maybe help sort out the undead here?
You realize we exorcise demons, not skeletons, right?
Yeah, but I was hoping there would be some overlap?
Ah, so you're the kind of customer who comes up to the clothing store wanting to return your toaster. Well, I only get to send an invoice once the job is done. And I did minor in sending at Spira University. I'll call the rest of the sisters and see what we can do.
Oh, thank you so much. With your help, this job should go a lot quicker. Okay, I've got to get back to working some more cases, so make sure to do all the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, tell me what you think about Exorsisters in the comments, and remember, YouTube members can see the rest of my schedule for this month's videos, and if you want to vote on a video for next month, make sure to check out my Patreon. In fact, I want to take some time to shout out my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, CozyBoat275, Nebula Navigators, Benjamin Meisner, Billy Spence, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba331, Panther J, The Wizard Moose and the Fresh Prince of Con-Air, Cosmic Crusaders, Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd, George Schaefer, Hakatana, The Legendary Raven, and Panda PLS, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. And if you want to see another video about the Grand Creator archetypes, check out this video I did about punks. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Ooh, that must be Delilah. Hey, no worries, I called the Exorcisters in and it's all taken.
I don't mean to be rude, but I'll have to stop you right there. You and I have some business to attend to.